The mid-season draft is over. All 18 picks were used by all the clubs who were involved in the mid-season draft. Essendon had 4 picks and we have picked 4 players. We have used all 4 picks. We're going to get into who we picked, what it means for this year and potentially what it means for beyond, and how some of those players might fit into the Bomber team both this year and next in this video. So with our first pick of the draft, which was pick number 6, we picked Archer May. Archer May is a key forward. He's 198 centimetres, so he's a big boy. He's 20 years old, so he's a young player, which is good. I think we should pick for the future with these picks, not necessarily players that are replacement players for injured players. Collingwood was really into this player. They really wanted to get him. They were desperate to get him, and isn't it good to get one up on the Pies? He's a bit of a Collingwood fan, apparently. And we got him with pick 6 before the Pies could swoop on him. What's interesting as well, and I find this quite humorous, is that Dermot Brereton is a mentor to him. And we all know what Dermot thinks of the Bombers, so I think that's kind of funny that this player that Dermot mentors is now playing for the Bombers. So I can't wait to see Dermot in an Essendon jumper soon. So, look, he's kicked 12 goals this year in 6 games for Subiaco. He kicked 3 and 4 in his last couple of games. He was able to get selected in the WAFL representative side. He's sort of known for having a clean set of hands. He's known for a willingness to produce repeat efforts. And look, 198 centimetre forwards don't grow on trees. So, and often you find these kind of players are late developers. You often find, at least I find with the the national draft, the midfielders can come in and play straight away, and often you find bigger players, ruckman, taller players, can often hit their peak a bit later, and they might miss their chance in the national draft and become good players elsewhere. You see like Hawthorn getting players like Lloyd Meek, ruckman sort of who's a little bit older and missed his chance when he was sort of 18, and these sort of players. So we hope that, he has a long career at Essendon. I like picking younger players. I don't really agree with just picking players to replace injured players, because if you're picking players to replace an injured player, you're really picking a player for, 6 weeks, aren't you? And what happens at the end of the season when our quartet of injured players all come back? So I am of the opinion that we should do it for the list build, and hopefully that's the same thinking for Essendon. I think they probably went for the best player available. That's usually the strategy. So Archer May, welcome to Essendon. So with our next pick, we picked Lachlan Blackston from East Fremantle. So Lachlan Blackston is 26 years old. He's 203 centimetres, and he's a ruckman. So it's not a surprise that we picked a ruckman. I'm kind of mixed on whether we should have, but look, I guess you put your faith in the recruiting team, especially at his age, mid-age player, 26 years old. Obviously, he's been picked to play this year. You would expect him to play senior football this year at that age. You wouldn't pick a 26-year-old unless you thought that they could slot straight into the team. And look, he's a player that is a bit of a poster boy for perseverance. He had a rapid ascent from amateur football to the AFL's senior ranks. He's regarded as a very committed player that's got an effective training regimen, and he just wants to be an AFL player. Last year, 2024, he played 10 matches and he averaged 16 disposals, 34 hitouts, 3.4 tackles per game. He's only played a couple of games this year, and you can see he's the three games there. He's had 9 disposals, 25 hitouts in the first game, 13 disposals, 18 hitouts in the second game, and 18 disposals, 21 hitouts in the third game. So you would probably be expecting, given that Vigo Vicentini is 7 years younger and quite raw, that Blackiston would be replacing Goldstein at some point for a couple of games. I can only assume that would be the plan for this player. And good luck to him. It's great to get on a senior list. It's great for that perseverance to really shine through. 203 centimetres, I think that makes him our tallest player. I think that makes him taller than 2 metre Peter. So, Lachlan Blackiston, welcome to the Bombers. I'm kind of a little bit mixed on what his role would be the following season. As I did stated in the other video, and I think a lot of you did tend to agree with me, given that we have 4 injured players out for the season who we are essentially quote-unquote replacing in this mid-season draft. But there are only 13 games left, though, this year, and those 13 games will just go by like that, like anything. And then all of a sudden, these 4 players we picked in the mid-season draft are competing with a spot on the list with everybody else, including the 4 players who are back from injury, who are all certain to be on the list next year. And it sort of begs the question what his role would be next year. Now, at the end of the day, it's more ruck depth. If he's good enough and he's able to play to a certain level, he could guarantee himself a spot in the team. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to him and what level he plays at. He could go ahead of all the ruck, but who knows? That's really up to him and his ability. But I sort of look at, Draper, Bryan. I know Draper probably won't be back till a little bit into the year, but Draper, Bryan, Vigo, who will be a further year ahead in his development next year, and obviously a project player for us that we will be expecting to play senior football. You've also got 2 metre Peter, who's that sort of half ruck, half, more of a forward, but can also ruck. And then Blackston is, sort of like that 5th in line maybe. So it begs the question: will he just be playing out time next year? Is he a player that has a future? I hope so. But at 26 years old, you sort of wonder when with Draper and Bryan back, what chance he's got of playing senior football next year. So I guess he will look upon the rest of this year as a bit of an audition, because if I'm thinking that and you guys are thinking that and the club might be thinking that, he's probably thinking, well, I've got a chance here to show my wares, show how good I am, and maybe he can surprise us and really push into the team. Who knows? So Lachlan Blackston was our 2nd pick in the draft. Oscar Smart was our 3rd pick in the draft. I'm not going to say welcome to Essendon because he's already at Essendon as a VFL player. So that is actually kind of handy because he knows the system. He knows I guess he kind of knows the way we play, the game plan, knows the personnel, and is familiar at the club with all that sort of thing. And he has been mooted as being a potential pick in the mid-season draft. A couple of clubs were looking at him, and it's not really a surprise that Essendon picked him. Certainly with one of the later picks, with the 3rd or 4th pick. There was always a chance with the 3rd or 4th pick that after we pick a couple of tall players, we were going to go for Oscar Smart potentially with our 3rd or 4th pick. He's 19 years old. He's 180 centimetres. I think what probably sealed the deal for Oscar was his performance in the VFL on the weekend. He had his best game of the year, most productive game of the year anyway. He kicked 3 goals, and I think he saw that as a bit of an audition and a bit of maybe a last gasp attempt to get onto an AFL list, and he was probably our best non-listed AFL player, I think, of the the VFL type players. I think he was the best non-listed AFL player, so that might have got him over the line. He's known for his dynamic play. He can impact games with a bit of flair and pressure. He's short. He's a small player. He started with the Bendigo Pioneers in the in the under-18 league, and he did play as a little bit as a midfielder. There, he could play a bit of a midfielder and forward. He's certainly played more forward since he's been with the Essendon VFL side. And, he was averaging about a goal a game as a youngster. Last year, when he joined Essendon's VFL side, he played 12 matches and he kicked 4 goals in one of those matches at Marvel Stadium against the Bulldogs. This season, he's kicked 7 goals in 6 games. He's averaging nearly 4 tackles a game, nearly 4 marks a game, and 13 disposals a game. So, obviously his role, I guess, is kind of similar to Kako. So, they'll be competing, I guess, for the kind of same spot on the team. Is there room for 2 small forwards in the team? Well, possibly. I kind of like the idea of a smaller forward line. I kind of think it suits us a little bit better than just bombing it in and hoping we can take marks. My feelings, guys. If you watch my videos, I like more of a chaos game plan where you've got smaller forwards, running onto loose balls in more of an open forward line. I kind of like that idea if the game plan is more facilitated around that, but which ours isn't. But Oscar is certainly a very capable player. And will he play this year? I don't know. I reckon it's probably 50-50 as to whether he plays this year. Obviously, he's not a player who is picked in a position where we currently have injuries. We have a reasonable amount of players of his size and positional ability. Gresham down there potentially as well, and players like that. So whether he plays, I guess it could remain to be seen if some of the players in his position either get dropped. I mean, Kako hasn't been setting the world on fire. I've said it before. I don't think that's his fault. I don't think the game plan is set up for Kako to succeed at the moment, and I think we should persist with him and get games into him. But hopefully Oscar can crack it for a couple of games, and he will now be competing on the list at the end of the season for a spot on the list. We effectively have 47 players on the list now. Not really, it's 43, but it's 47 if you count the inactive list with the 4 long-term injuries on it. So we're going to have to get that 47 down to around about 38 or so. Don't quote me on 38, but it's something like that. You need to leave enough spots open for the November draft and the SSP pick. Remember, Tom Edwards was an SSP pick, rookie draft, things like that. So he's one of 47 players now on the list that will be trying to be one of the best 38 or so. That's approximate, one of the best 38 or so. And at 19 years of age, I like this pick as well because it's a pick for the future. It's not a pick for now. It's not a pick to just replace injured players. He's going to be competing with all the other players on the list to make that final approximate 38 players before the November draft. And at his age, he could play for 10 years if he's good enough. So good luck to Oscar Smart. He knows the system. He knows the players. He's in the VFL system. He's got every chance of succeeding with Essendon. So Liam McMahon was our last pick. So Liam McMahon is probably one of the more well-known players in the draft. He was quite a highly touted player, and it was probably more likely than not that someone was going to pick him up. He actually got drafted by Collingwood in 2020. He's currently playing with Carlton's VFL team. And he's a really, really productive goal kicker, which I'm going to get into in a minute. He won the VFL Best and Fairest last year for Carlton. He finished second in the VFL goal kicking last year with 45 goals in 16 games, so averaging over 2 goals per match. He kicked 7 goals against Geelong in a game. And he's got some leadership qualities as well. He was named co-captain of the Carlton Reserves for this season, the 2025 season. In terms of his output this year, he's averaging 10 disposals a game, 4 marks a game, a tackle, and he's averaging 3.4 goals per game this year. If you just look at his 7 games he's played in the VFL, those goal tallies are 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, 4, and 2. So he's pretty much kicking 3 or 4 every week. So that's a really, really productive player. And it's kind of surprising he hasn't sort of found his way into an AFL team sort of permanently before now with those sort of numbers. You're kicking like 3.5 goals a game. He's, very, very well established as a forward line player. He's 23 years old, and he could give quite good cover for Caddy or a possible replacement if Caddy is injured or whatever down there. Possibly play alongside him. Who knows? You can't fit all these players into the team. I get that. But he is definitely a player that could play senior football. He's mature. He's 23, so he's a bit older, but not too old. He's still got 8-9 years ahead of him if he's good enough to stay on the list. And he's an exciting player. Like most of you, a lot of people would have heard of him by now, and a number of clubs were looking at him and have been considering him. So good luck there to Liam McMahon. Hopefully he can crack it in the seniors for the Bombers. So one thing that is noticeable with the 4 picks is the lack of defenders that we've picked, and that is probably going to be something that you guys might mention in the comments, or it might be something that's quite notable. We've got these injured defenders. Why haven't we picked a defender? I don't mind this. Look, the defenders we've got, really, I mean, if you look at the 4 injured players who are out for the year, you've got 2 ruckmen, a forward in Tom Edwards, and a young defender in Lewis Hayes who'd only played the 1 game, right, and might not have been a permanent fixture in the team. So the defenders that we have out now from the key team are obviously our key players, Ridley, Mackay, Reed, but they're going to be back in 6 weeks. It feels like a long time, 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Why can't it just be 1 or 2 weeks? But at the end of the day, 6 weeks, in the scheme of things, it's not that long. Their season is not over. And I don't think it's the right thing to do to be picking key defenders essentially for a 6-week period, which is kind of what you'd be doing. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you do need to pick players for the future. And with the 4 picks that we've got, I think that's really what we've done. Maybe with the possible exception of Blackston. who's 26 years old, and it'll be interesting what his role will be next year should he remain on the list. But look, Archer May, 20 years old, Oscar Smart, 19, Liam McMahon, 23, and those three players are all in positions that we don't really have injuries in at the moment. And I think that's a good thing. I do think that's a good thing because it gives those players a genuine prospect in terms of the list build. And if you're just picking players to replace short-term injuries, their chances may be limited when the injured players come back. So what do you guys think? I think it's a very interesting 4 selections. Archer May, Lachlan Blackston, Oscar Smart, and Liam McMahon. A couple of forwards, a ruckman, and a small forward. Exciting times for the Bombers. We have these 4 extra players now competing on the list with everybody else for a spot on the list, and this should create a playing list next year with more depth than what it otherwise would be had we not picked these 4 players in the mid-season draft, because we're essentially whittling down 47 players now to somewhere in the high 30s before the national draft, rather than whittling down 43 players into something in the high 30s. And if you're whittling down a higher number of players, the 38 or 39 players that you are left with should, at least in theory, be of a higher quality with more depth. So this is not a good thing for this year, obviously, with the injuries, but I think it could be a positive for next year and beyond for the Bombers. What do you guys think of these selections? Let me know in the comments. Have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.